Okay, so we've got the diagram below, which shows us the life cycle of a worker honeybee. So we want to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. I'll just blow it up a little bit here and give you a minute to look at it, and you can ask questions if there's any part that's confusing. All right. Any suggestions on how to group this information or organize this information?
I say the life cycle of a honeybee includes 6 stages, like as an introduction.
Are these 6 distinct stages, or is there a maybe smaller way to group them?
Pupa and larva?
Well, how many?
Maybe first 10 days and then second 10 days.
Okay. Does anyone have any other suggestions for how to group this information? We've got 6 stages, we've got number of days.
Maybe first eggs, then larva, then I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Pupa. I know you're thinking of the Polish pronunciation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then adult.
Yes.
Maybe egg and larva and pupa and adult.
Pupa.
Pupa?
Pupa.
Pupa.
Pupa stage, yeah. Egg, larva, pupa, adults. That's a pretty straightforward way to do this. Okay. And then you could subdivide those stages, within the body paragraphs.
Yes.
All right, so let's start talking about it. Decrease this a little bit. All right, let me ask Shamri, how would you paraphrase the prompt to start with our first sentence?
The diagram depicts the life cycle of honeybee in 4 stages.
Okay, what's a synonym for the diagram?
Diagram. Process? No. Chart?
No, it's not a chart. This one's not a chart anyway.
The picture, you can say that.
Picture?
Illustration.
Illustration. Okay, all of these process diagrams, you can call all of them illustrations, or you can call them diagrams, but that's the word that they use. You should know this one. The illustration depicts, right? And depicts, if you need help remembering this one, the root is picture. The illustration depicts
Life cycle of a honeybee.
Life cycle of a honeybee. We don't really have a synonym for life cycle, so just call it a life cycle. The life cycle of a honeybee.
In 4 stages. Oh.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's save that for our general overview.
Okay.
Questions? Okay, why don't we get everyone to write a general overview?
Okay.
So the general overview, you don't want to be too specific, but at the same time, you want to give a good idea of how you're going to organize this information. Remember that as the reader, I should understand the structure of your entire text just from the general overview. Okay, so just put that in the chat. And Myra, are you familiar with Zoom, with what we're using for this webinar?
No, actually not.
Okay. So we've got a chat box, and I just wrote hi in it. I don't know if
Okay.
I don't know if you can see the chat box.
Yeah, I see now.
Okay, so the general overview is a one-sentence summary of the main idea of the diagram, the thing that you're going to describe in detail in the body paragraphs. So right now, all we're doing is every person is just writing their own version of the general overview, and in about 5 minutes, we'll take them up.
Okay, it should be one sentence or can it be more than one sentence?
It can be one or two.
Okay.
It does not need to be more than that, because you're saving all the details for the body paragraphs. And remember, this is a short task. 150 to 200 words is really short. If you were to take the examination, you'd only have 20 minutes to do it. So you don't want to give away too much in the intro, because then you won't have anything to talk about in the body.
Okay.
Generally, we start the general overview with words like in general, generally speaking, overall, and then
Sorry, my mistake.
okay, very good, Shamri. Just one small thing.
Oh, starting with the.
That's it.
Thank you.
Myra's is here. Okay. Divided. Myra, are you there?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we need a different preposition here. These little words in, on, under,
Add-
over.
Add 4 steps?
No, different one.
The illustration shows in 4 steps.
Okay. Divided into 4 steps.
Okay, into. In
And
capital letter, right?
no capital.
Oh,
I just use capital so you can tell what my notes are and what your writing is.
oh, okay.
Okay. So to use this colon, first of all, there's no space ever between the last word and the punctuation.
Yes.
But if you're going to use the colon, you don't need to put anything there.
Okay.
Like I would say, I need to buy 3 things at the supermarket, colon, eggs, comma, milk, comma, and cheese. I need to buy 3 things, colon, and then you make your list.
Okay.
However, pupa in adult life. Okay, good. Oksana. Overall, clearly seen that.
The cycle.
Yeah.
And do you send this material by email? Oh.
Sorry?
Do you send the material by email?
No. I'll explain how the course works towards the end of the class.
Okay.
And then I'll give you a walkthrough of everything.
Okay, thank you.
4 stages, starting with eggs being laid in a single cell and ending up with an adult bee.
Emerged.
No.
No. From the cell. But what's happened with be emerged? No.
Emerge is one of those verbs that doesn't make sense in passive voice. Like you can't emerge something. That's kind of a good rule of thumb. So we talked about VT verbs.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a VI verb, it's not going to work with passive.
So I have to replace that word or just emerge?
Actually, that's not always true.
Okay.
With an adult bee, I think Chomri just gave you the answer.
Emerging.
Emerging. Can you explain why?
You're asking from me, Ian?
That's right.
As I told you, it's not because that I know it technically, it's how it rhymes. That's how I say it.
All right, so
Because
your ears are
starting,
working. Mm-hmm.
because of the starting, right?
Yeah. What is this short for? This is and ending up with an adult bee that emerges from,
The cell.
let's see, the cell. That emerges becomes emerging. Remember, this is a relative clause. And relative clauses, in many, many cases, you can simply transform into participles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's where it's coming from. This is active voice, so it becomes an active participle.
The cell. Mm-hmm.
The life cycle of a honeybee. Overall, it can be clearly seen that 6 stages are involved in that process. And this is good. It can be clearly seen as passive voice, and this is a good way to use it. Okay, for the examination, this makes a difference because the examiner is looking for evidence of grammatical range, not that everything is written in active voice. They want to see that you're comfortable with passive voice, so this is a good little phrase to memorize. Stick it in there, and you've basically covered yourself for passive voice. 6 stages are involved in that process, starting with eggs laid by the queen and ending by ending a different preposition here.
With?
Yeah. It's usually with. By is also common, but with is more common, and if in doubt, use with. Please emerging from so. From cells. Here it says 1 egg is laid in a single cell. So it would be, yeah, emerging from cells or from the cells. It's okay too. Got Dina. Fix the honeybee's life cycle. Overall can be clearly seen. Here we go again. This natural cyclical process. Six stages. Why not put them in 4 groups? Because it's not clear why these would be one group. Or are you planning to explain that?
Okay, I thought I put egg and larva in one body paragraph, and but you are right. I can say in 4 groups, and then it's okay when I divide it.
Yeah, you can still put 2 of them in one paragraph. You can just say, got 6 stages.
Sometimes they say the process is difficult to group it. I can do.
You can say that. Yeah, the first part of the process starts with
this and this, and
yeah, why not?
Okay.
It's kind of up to you how you want to group it.
Okay, but otherwise the grammar is okay.
Yes, yeah, excellent. I would maybe put this in consists of 6 stages in 2 groups.
In two groups?
In two, yeah. Instead of and includes, I would just put in.
In 2 groups, okay. Can I put after 6 stages, comma, including 2 groups?
No, because then it sounds like those 2 groups are part of the 6 stages, but they're the same thing.
Okay. Second question, if I want to write this, what I did, egg and larva, this one group and second group, but then I felt that I need to repeat and, so I put as well as in between.
Yeah, good.
Correct?
So that's a good point. If you've got groups that include and, you can alternate with as well as between these two groups. Egg and larva, and then pupa and adult are the two groups, and she's using as well as in between them. Life cycle of a honeybee, generally speaking, the honeybee's life cycle. Paula,
Starting?
are you there? No?
Starts. Started.
Whoa,
Starts.
whoa, whoa. Are you guessing or are you telling me?
No, starts.
Starts, there we go.
Then what is starts?
It starts. I start, you start, the life cycle starts. Right. Do you have any questions about that?
Yeah, it was like between like I know the relative s, but this s like starts or start. I don't know where to use it. Like last time you explained it when you are like describing two things to start, right?
No. What do you mean relative S?
Like honeybee's life cycle. In the first one,
Oh, that's possessive.
possessive honeybee. But the
So this is a noun, right?
yes,
And we use this possessive S because the life cycle belongs to the honeybee.
yes,
It's like saying John's bike was stolen. John apostrophe S bike was stolen. So the bike belongs to John. So we show possession with apostrophe S. But here, this is a big noun, right? The honeybee's life cycle.
yes.
That's your subject, and then this is the verb, right?
Okay, so then the verb should be with s.
It has to be with S. It's I start, you start, it. So this always confuses people because there's no logical reason for this. And this is the single most common mistake by English language learners. It's not putting this S on. There's no thinking involved, you just have to memorize it.
So in case of he, she, it, we put s.
Always, always, always. It doesn't mean it's plural, it's not possessive, it's just this is the ending when it's he, she, it. And this is, what's this verb tense, by the way? What's this verb tense? Past, present, future,
Present.
present. Which present? There's four of
Simple
them.
present.
That's
Simple
it.
present. Present simple.
Yeah. Simple present, present simple, same thing. Starts with
The queen.
the queen. Okay, now I understand. The queen. The queen lays an egg. Simple sentence. When you put the process starts with the queen, and what do we do with this? How do we change that verb? Allah.
Lace.
No, this is the one we've been talking about for the last couple classes.
Laying with ing in the end.
Yep. Mix the flour and water. Another simple sentence. The process starts with
Mixing.
Mixing.
yeah. Bake the cake at 450. The process ends with
Baking.
baking. So we've got a pattern here. Whenever you have something like this, the process starts with, the process ends with, you're going to have this active participle here instead of the regular verb.
Okay, so it starts with the queen laying egg
Mm-hmm.
in a single cell. And ending.
Be careful.
Ends. Because it starts.
Starts and ends.
With the
And,
adult?
yeah, you got to change that to with. Ends with the adult honeybee.
Emerging.
Yeah. And this needs to be
Yeah, comma here. Not here.
Ian, how do you pronounce this? Cyclical?
cyclical.
Cyclical. Okay.
Cyclical, yeah.
Thank you.
Dina integrated that nicely. Use this construction. It can be clearly seen that this natural cyclical process consists of 6 stages. And if we're going to use this, let me give you a pattern just to memorize. Overall, it can be clearly seen, so this is your passive voice, don't change this, that this natural cyclical process consists of 6 stages, starting with and ending with Do you know how many grammar points you're hitting with this sentence if you just memorize this? You've got a dummy construction sentence because it doesn't mean anything. So this is a specific type of sentence structure. You've got passive voice, and then you've got 2 participial phrases at the end. So please memorize this construction and use this for all diagrams like this. The more of these you can memorize, the easier you make life for yourself, because boom, you can just throw the sentence out on the page, write it super quickly, and then just move on with your life. You can at least have like this nice big sentence that should be flawless as your general overview, right? No thinking involved, just use the pattern. It's a really good one. If you're writing reports later on, medical reports, workplace reports, whatever it is, you can use the exact same pattern for describing a process. Okay, so let's go through the stages step by step, and I'll just pick people in a row. So we could use a number of these, but let's just go through them one by one. Okay, let's start with Dina. Sorry if it's a little bit small. I can't really do too much
No.
about that right now.
So we will start with the egg. Queen lays 1,000 to 2,000 eggs every day. But I will read it first. One egg is laid in a single cell. Eggs are laid in an upright position.
Okay,
So,
so Myra, just for this kind of task, you don't want to use the exact same language that's given in the
yes.
prompt. You need to paraphrase. You got to put it in your own words. Okay. Go ahead, Dina.
Yeah. Eggs are laid by the queen every day in a single.
Right, what about a transition?
Yes, maybe to start with.
I'm just going to give you a super simple one.
Or in the first 3 stages.
Okay. Or even simpler, since you're just talking about one, you can do a paragraph introduction afterwards. When you're doing this, it can sometimes seem like an overwhelming task to organize everything in your head. Because you're writing on computer, you don't need to worry about that. Just write the whole thing in point form and then chunk it later, add the transitions later. You can add a topic sentence later. You don't need to write it linearly from beginning to ending. This is how most professional writers do their work. They write it in point form, and then they expand their point form into full sentences and paragraphs. It's just so much easier to see the entire document, at least the main ideas in the document, in point form before you transform it into full sentences and paragraphs. It's so much easier to write that way. Okay, in the first step, what happens?
So
do you know a synonym for lays?
Hatch?
No, hatch is
no. Hatch is later when larvae hatch from the egg.
Yeah, or when the chick hatches, when the egg cracks open and the chick pops its head out.
Incubate?
Maybe you're the scientist, so you can probably tell me better. But there's a more common word that you can use for lay an egg. It's kind of a business word. In the first step, the queen bee
produces.
So we can say queen produces 1,000 to 2,000 eggs every day.
What's the synonym for every day?
A day, each day.
Can I suggest
daily?
Daily.
Daily? What's another synonym for daily?
Daily.
On a daily basis. You can say, okay, so those are fine. Okay, now we've got a couple details there that we need to include.
You can do, and then each egg is laid in a single cell.
What would be a synonym for laid in this case?
Thrown in a single cell.
Well, she doesn't throw them. That's not too gentle, right?
Placed.
What,
Placed.
Incubated.
that's it. Placed. Placed is gentle. Place it back in the case.
Yes.
Each egg is placed in a single cell. What would be another way to say that?
Transported.
Lonely.
In a lonely cell in its
On.
boom. There we go. Each egg is placed in its own cell. And what about the last bit? What would be a synonym for in an upright position?
Horizontal.
That's the opposite.
Sitting position.
Vertical.
Standing position.
What's the opposite of horizontal?
Vertical.
Its own cell in a vertical position. As a super quick grammar task, how could you put these two together?
Comma instead of dot.
So we're going to put a comma there, but you're going to have to make some changes to the second part for this to work.
We
We
remove
can-
the E, capital E.
Yeah.
Which is placed.
While.
Okay. Oksana, let me just hear your suggestion first before.
That's what I don't know. Maybe I did wrong. Which is placed in its own cell in vertical position.
Good. Which
Cool.
is placed in its own cell in a vertical position. That's it. You're good. This is perfect.
Can we put comma each egg being placed?
Oh, sorry. This which are placed. Sorry, not perfect. We have to make a change because this is plural, right? So this is not going to work if this part is singular and this part is plural. So
Which are
Oksana,
placed?
yeah, in
its own cells?
well, we're talking plural now, so what's the plural of its?
There.
Which are placed in their own cells in a vertical position. Good. And what's another way to do this?
Sorry, can we put comma each cell being placed?
Each egg being placed. Mm-hmm.
We can.
And I would put with at the beginning.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to explain why, but in some cases, ask yourself, just ask your ears, is this going to sound better with at the beginning of the participial phrase? This would still be correct without it. But it's a little bit
better.
It's a little bit literary. That's not a great explanation, but you would find this construction in a story, an older fashioned story. Sometimes just ask yourself, is with going to make this sound better? With each egg being placed in its own cell in a vertical position.
Can I ask for a third option? Can we remove with each egg being, we put comma placed in its own cell?
daily basis.
On a daily basis, placed in its own, placed in their own cells in a vertical position.
Placed in receptacle on a daily basis. Yeah, I'd say it's okay. You could also do each placed in each placed in its own cell in a vertical position. Each egg placed in its own cell in a vertical position.
We can put dot after bases and we say and then each egg, like dot after daily bases and then each egg being placed.
Yeah, you could just put a comma.
And then.
So this would be like the simplest way to do it. I'm just putting these kind of in order of complexity, and then comma, and then each egg is placed in its own cell in a vertical position. Yes, you can do that. But this is not a complex. This is not a compound. Sorry, it's not a complex sentence anymore. It's a compound sentence, right? So there is a scale of complexity. Myra, if you're not worried about IELTS, then you're not worried about this. But for IELTS, you're given a higher score when they see a larger variety of complex sentences. So this, true, it is like a basic complex sentence, but in a traditional grammar book, they would call this a compound sentence. Right? It's really hot out, so I decided to stay home. It's pretty simple English. You're just using soy ban, for, and, nor, so, or, yet between the two sentences.
Okay.
All right, what is the next step? Let's go with Myra.
Okay.
So we're on this one here, day 3. Oh, and so, this just made me think of something. When you're doing the introduction, the general overview, you should mention maybe how many days the whole process takes. Okay, how about, why don't we put it here? That take place over 21 days. Okay. So we missed that one, but okay. Myra, run larva, day 3.
Okay. Can I start with on day 3?
Yep.
On day 3, each egg is transformed.
I would use the active because there isn't somebody doing the transformation.
Eastern form. If I put interlarva, it's the same, right?
Right, and you have to use your knowledge of vocabulary to distinguish between things you can paraphrase and things you cannot paraphrase. Some things don't have good synonyms. So you leave it as is. Each egg transforms into a larva. Okay, one larva, plural is larvae, AE. Transforms into a larvae. Okay, and keep going. We've got 3 points there that we need to include.
During the process,
if you're talking about time, then according to this diagram, when do these 3 points take place?
between the day 3 and the day 9.
Yeah, so you can say over the next
step.
6 days.
Over the next 6 days. Okay. The skin is changed in treatment.
Don't worry too much. Like if it's starting to sound really awkward, don't try too hard to come up with synonyms.
Okay.
Molt, shed their skin, shed its skin. Not too many synonyms for that.
Okay, over the 6 days, the larva skin shards. Can I say change, or it's not good vocabulary for that? Sure.
Change is a bit too general. This is quite specific.
Break into 3 stages?
We can change it to passive. Okay, when I say you have to paraphrase, that can also include changing the grammatical form of a word.
Okay, so the skin are changed, or the skin are shedded.
The larva's skin is shed.
Three
We
times.
can't say.
Can I say like also? Also, lava. Can see.
It says larvae are fed 150 to 800 times per day, and they increase in size 1,500 times. Is there a logical connection between these?
Yes.
Why does it need to shed its skin?
Increasing the size.
Yeah, because it just keeps getting bigger, right? Skin is too small. Shed 3 times.
Can I just say also are feed 180 times daily?
You'd need a subject.
Also the larvae?
See,
No.
I would also say during this period.
During this period, okay. Larvae are fed 100, 800 times daily.
Yep. What would be a synonym for are fed?
Okay.
Let's say I am fed 3 times per day. I
Eating.
eat. Larvae eat
Eat.
times daily and
Increasing 105 times their size.
increase, you can say their size.
1,500 times.
Yep. Does anyone have any suggestions for paraphrasing this part?
What?
Actually, increase their size is a little bit no good. It's increase in size is the expression, but that's the same. It's a little bit too similar to the original. Any suggestions? If you've got this kind of huge increase, what's an adverb that you could use?
Exceed. Oh.
Or you could also say growing times larger.
We can say larva weight increases 500 times.
I assume that's true, but it doesn't say, it just says size, not weight. So that's not necessarily the same thing, right? We don't know that. It's probably true, but we don't know. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Let's go with Sylvia.
Um, on the ninth day, cell is covered with beeswax.
Can you put that in your own words?
Mm,
What does capping mean?
Cover.
wrap.
Covered.
Cover.
Covered or closed, right?
Of course.
For example, if you cap a well, you seal it, you close it. Covered, closed, so that'll work too. Sealed with beeswax. Keep going.
Mm. And then larva creates a cocoon.
Larvae create spin a cocoon around their bodies. What would be another way to say that?
Mm.
If there's something that's going all around you,
Cover you?
cover, I'm thinking of another word, but cover would be okay. This is a verb.
Surrounding.
Surround.
Surround.
Present simple. For processes, the most common verb you're going to use is present simple, because the time doesn't matter for this kind of process. The cell is sealed with beeswax and larvae surround themselves in a cocoon. Cover themselves in a cocoon. Okay.
Which is
Yeah, go ahead.
the last stage of the larva.
Which is the last larva stage.
Mm-hmm.
Another way you could do this one, now we haven't talked about appositives in a little while, but this, where else could you put this?
Maybe on the 9 and the final larva stage, or the last.
You just put it right here. Okay, and for those who don't remember what this is called, it's called an appositive. You don't even need which is, because these two things are identical. So when the thing that comes after is exactly the same, it's just another way of saying this. You don't need any which is business. It's just comma and a big noun phrase, comma. It's like your friend Mike needs help. That's another appositive. Friend Mike. Oksana. Next stage.
On the day 14th,
On the 14th day or on day 14?
on the 14th day, the larva transforms into the pupa.
Larva. Be careful.
Yes, but it's transformation at what's happened with the...
So the larva stage ends. You're given this information that it's day 9.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they're not writing day 10, pupa stage begins, because it's a smooth transition. So it wouldn't look very different.
The larva transformed into pupa.
Can we say something about this?
Mm-hmm.
On the 14th day, so how many days after the pupa stage begins is that?
14 days.
5.
Day 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 5 days after the pupa stage begins, the larva, the pupa, sorry.
Yes, it's already the pupa.
Why
That's
we
a
don't
big-
say on day 14 pupa is developed?
The pupa develops
eyes, legs, wings.
and wings.
And do not have possessions of it.
No, no. What was that?
I don't- But you know, pupa do not eat, okay? And we have to transform this, or I don't know.
Yeah. So you don't want to just throw it in there. It has to be like included as a detail somewhere. Okay. So where do we put that information? Where do you want to throw it in?
I think it should be in a one sentence, you know. You don't need to break it in. It's like
Okay.
it's too short, right?
All right. So what do you suggest?
Ian, can we say the pupa forms with eyes, legs, and wings instead of develops? Can we say form
Yes. The pupa forms.
with eyes, legs, and wings?
You don't need with.
Okay. Mhm.
You could just put a sentence in here. Or we can say the 10th day
Or
is
else
the beginning of the pupa stage. Now put that detail in.
pupa stage.
We're going to use a relative clause starting with a preposition. Okay, how would we finish this sentence? During the pupa stage,
The formation of
we're putting in this detail about pupa do not eat.
okay.
The pupa is fasting?
I don't think they're really fasting. They're immobilized. Right? They can't move. They can't do anything. They're just transforming.
Pupa maintain life without eating?
Yep. Do not consume any food. Now, we've got this kind of baby sentence here. The 10th day is the beginning of the pupa stage. During the pupa stage, pupa do not consume any food. What could we replace these three words with? We're going to make this whole thing into one sentence.
During which?
That's it. Then I'm going to get rid of 14th day. I can include it as a detail. Pupa develops, forms eyes, legs, and wings. Okay. Who haven't we heard from? Let's go with Myra again. Okay, we're over here.
On the day 18.
Mm-hmm.
S and bar S on the body are a former.
Okay. You could also just say form.
Just form, okay.
Because the passive doesn't really mean anything here, right? Because who exactly is forming them? Life itself. So you can just use active voice.
Okay.
Hairs in the body form. Then who's going to give us the last step? Dina? Maybe, oh, there she is. Okay, last day.
So here, yeah. Bee eats beeswax and then comes out from the cell.
Sure. You should mention that, what is this? We talked about
Yeah.
4 stages, right?
Yeah, an adult. So we can say the adult bee
Okay.
eats the wax or the bee wax.
Well, it doesn't say that it eats it. We don't know. Maybe it eats it, maybe not.
Shows.
We can say breaks through.
So what the?
Well, and it needs to
Oh.
escape, right? Because in day 9, the cell is capped with beeswax. So the bee is kind of trapped inside. It needs to escape.
Hmm.
So it breaks through.
Hmm.
Breaks through.
So we can start on day 21. The adult bee breaks down.
Bee. We can say breaks through, breaks down. Mm-hmm.
Breaks down the beeswax.
Wax cap.
Yeah, and then comes out from the cell or moves out.
What's one word? Comes out, moves out. One word starts with L.
Left, leave.
And leaves
The cell.
Flies.
Cell.
Yeah, flees.
And flies away.
Flies away.
Well, it's not really going to fly away because it's part of the colony and is able to fly. Put that. Okay, any questions? Okay, is there anything you need to watch out for, Allah? What specifically do you need to watch out for when you edit?
What is it?
When you're editing, Remember, before you submit your work, you should always give yourself a few minutes to edit. When you're editing, always read your work out loud. Myra, your brain has basically two language centers. You've got your eyes and you've got your ears. So the eyes are super fast, they're very logical, but they jump from key idea to key idea. That's why we're able to speed read, because when you're just reading silently using your eyes can jump from key idea to key idea and just ignore all of the structural vocabulary of a sentence. So that doesn't really help you in the editing stage. Speaking out loud forces you to slow down, and it also engages your ears. And grammar is largely auditory. Okay, these are it's like each language has its own music, and that's what your ears are picking up. So you have to trust them, and if your ears tell you this grammar bit or this expression or this part of the sentence sounds awkward, not that it looks awkward, but it sounds awkward, change it to a structure that you're more confident with, a simpler grammatical structure or a simpler expression, simpler word. Okay, so Ala, what are you specifically watching out for when you edit your work? Where are you having the most mistakes and difficulties?
Yes, for the punctuations, I watch out, and also I watch out for the S that you describe it for me.
So where does that S need to go?
What do you mean by what? This is not.
Where should you put that S?
In case of he, she, it.
Right. So that's many, many, many things, right? Like it is almost everything. The computer, the process, the stage, the step, the be, right? These are all it, and that verb needs to take S. Okay, also watch out for fragments.
Yeah, the punctuations.
Mm-hmm.
I have issue with that.
Yep.
But it's better than before.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Your work shows improvement every single time. But but you're going to get killed on grammar for those kinds of mistakes. Especially that S at the end, that's a systematic issue. And if they notice something like that, if you do that twice, it indicates a systematic problem and it could prevent you from getting band 7. Right, 7 is for like occasional issues. Right, so if it's a systematic problem, it's not occasional.
Like what occasional issues?
You can have like a bunch of grammar mistakes and still get band 7, but you can't have too many, and they shouldn't be systematic problems. Okay, band 7 means no one's going to get confused by the grammar issues. So things like sentence fragments cause confusion. Right, so that's going to be a problem. They don't want to see systematic mistakes that indicate that you don't understand subject-verb agreement. So if you forget the S once, okay, no problem. But if you forget it 2 or 3 times, that's a big problem. Okay, so for you, it's just grammar issues. So that editing stage is really important. Don't worry about the speed right now. If you can't do it properly slowly, you can't do it properly quickly. It's impossible. So your focus initially has to be on accuracy. And then when you've sorted out the main issues, then you'll be able to do this more quickly.
This is what I'm doing. Like I'm just not like worrying about the time. I'm just like focusing on how to make it like grammatically right.
Okay, excellent. All right, so if there are no questions, I'm going to let you go because I have to show a couple of things to Myra about how the course works.
Ian, I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Why people do IELTS in Canada?
Why?
Yeah, because now I do to improve my English knowledge. But before coming, I did IELTS back home to get, the PR to come here.
Mhm.
So why still people do IELTS here? For what purpose?
Same thing. For PR, a lot of the students in this class, they're doctors, and to get their Canadian license, they have to get a Band 7 as part of the language requirement.
Okay.
Other people need to take IELTS to get into college or university, because if you don't get IELTS, then you get stuck in college or university bridging programs. You have to spend like a year taking their ESL courses.
You mean people coming from other countries or anybody enrolling into universities or colleges?
Not anybody. If you took 4 years of high school in an English-speaking country where the language of instruction was English, you don't need IELTS.
Okay.
But if it's even 3 years, only 3 years in an English-speaking high school, you will need to take IELTS.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
Right?
I
It's
was wondering why that people do, so I didn't know that. Okay.
3 million exams every year.
Around the world.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's the most popular. Popular is probably not the best word. It's the most commonly taken language test.
Yeah. I know it's really popular back home for the sake of people to get PR, but coming here, I never thought still people should obtain that too. Yeah.
Okay, so what is the homework? This one, life cycle?
Yes, and
Honeybee?
the URL's right here. I'll post it at 9 o'clock though.
Okay, thank you.
You just click this and it should work. Actually, no, it'll work in a few minutes.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. So it's due Thursday by noon.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.